Resourceful Designer, episode 241, 5 quick tips to help your design business.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. If he had more time and money, he'd get his pilot's license. Mark Descote.
Yep, and you know what? I'd really like to learn how to fly a helicopter. You know, I actually looked into that career back in high school. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot until I found out just how much it costs to become a helicopter pilot. And that's when I settled on being a graphic designer. But I don't have any regrets. Anyway, in this episode, I'm going to share 5 quick tips that will help your design business grow. I'm also going to share a resource that could help you stay organized. Now, what have I been up to? Well, I mentioned last week that I created a logo that I submitted to a client, and actually 2 versions of a logo I submitted to a client, and they didn't like either of them, and it was back to the drawing board. So I created a 3rd variation this week and sent it off, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they do like that one. They haven't got back to me yet. But normally I like to present kind of on video if I can with the clients, but in this case that wasn't possible, so I just had to send off the presentation, the PDF presentation that I would have made. I sent it off to them, and I'm waiting to hear back. So fingers crossed on that one. Other than that, did some updates on a couple of podcast cover arts, creating new ones, I should say, and one of them was an update. They'd made some changes and they wanted the artwork updated a little bit. I did get a new client for a website. This is somebody that has an existing website that just so happens is already built on Divi. The previous web designer who created it used Divi, so that'll be a big help to me. And their designer went MIA. They can't get a hold of him anymore, and they need somebody to do some changes to the website. So my name was passed on, and they've hired me to take that on. So I'm going to do that project not till January. I'm not taking anything new on for the rest of the year, other than maybe the odd podcast artwork here and there, because they're pretty quick. But for web projects, they're going to wait till January, but he was okay with that. So that's a new project I have for the new year. Now, one issue I had with websites is the WordPress 5.6 update came out earlier this week, and I double-checked all my client websites and everything was fine, but it's my podcast branding website that actually broke. For some reason, a lot of the images, especially if I used any animations, I don't use a lot of animations, but those that I did put an animation on, they weren't showing up at all. And worst of all, my order form was not showing up. So I had to do some playing around there to get it working again. Ended up having to go back to a backup version of the website prior to the update to WordPress 5.6. So I'm going to hold off and see. Now, I don't know if it was WordPress that was the problem, because Divi also came out with an update on almost the same day, and I think both of them were updated together. So I don't know if it was Divi or if it was WordPress that caused the problem, but the backup was prior to both of the updates, and it's functioning. So I'm going to wait till both WordPress and Divi have an update. And that was my mistake. I normally turn off WordPress auto updates, but on my own website, I left it on for some reason just to test it out mostly, because I usually never update to a WordPress, 5 point something. I always wait for it to be a number, point, and a 3rd number. So I never usually update to a 2-number release. It's always the 3-number release that I wait for. So that's what I'm going to do this time. I'll wait for at least 5.6.1 to come out, and hopefully that'll solve the problem when I do update. So that's just a little bit of the things that I've been up to this week. Of course, always spending time in the Resourceful Designer community. We're getting ready next week. We're going to be getting together for a special video chat where we're going to exchange our Secret Santa gifts. Now, not everybody in the community is partaking, but those that are looking forward to this. It was a great time last year. We all got on a Zoom call, opened our gifts in front of each other, and it was a lot of fun. So that's happening next week. And we've got a lot of new people participating this year that I'm looking forward to. And it's just another one of those bonding experiences where you get to know, you get to learn who these people are in the community. And it makes you that much closer. And then when you're communicating, you're talking, it's so much easier when you feel like you know the people. Now, as you may have heard, if you've been listening to the podcast before, the community is currently closed for the rest of this year, 2020. but I will be opening up again in very early 2021. Not right at the beginning of January, but very shortly after, I will reopen the community, and I will let you know when that happens. But if you want to be one of the first ones let in, or to be notified when it does open, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community and sign up there, and I will email you the moment it opens again. And there may be a little bonus in there as well. You'll have to wait and see. And now, this week's resource of the week. And this week's resource is Evernote. And I can't believe that I've never shared, or it's been years since I've shared Evernote as a resource, because this is probably, besides my email program and my web browsers, Evernote's probably one of the only programs that I use on almost a daily basis. I mean, even Photoshop and Illustrator, I don't use every single day sometimes, but Evernote never fails. And in my opinion, it's one of the best organization tools out there. And it's so much more than just a note-taking app. I save so many websites when I come across an article, like say it's something that I think would be maybe a good topic to discuss on the podcast. Well, I save that to a special notebook I have for Resourceful Designer podcast episodes. And with the web clippers, it's so easy to just take the website and say, I want to clip this to Evernote. And it allows me to save the entire page as is, just the article itself, which is really cool. It actually can pick out the article and eliminate all the ads and everything else that's on the page and just save the article for me. And I love that feature. I also have a notebook in there with all recipes that I have, that a lot of them were of my mom. My mom's passed away several years ago, but a lot of her old recipes that I loved, I have them in an Evernote folder. I also keep track of all the licenses. Every email that I get that has a license number for software or anything like that, I always forward it to Evernote. And that's another good thing. You get a mailbox with Evernote so that, say, an email comes in, I could just forward it to my Evernote email box and it automatically shows up in the program. So it's an easy way for me to keep track of all the licenses I get, all the invoices that I pay. At the end of the year, they're all there together, and it's very easy come tax time. I can just call up and say, show me the invoices that are tagged 2020. And every invoice tagged 2020 will show up for me for taxes, for me to decide whether or not they're an expense and that sort of thing. But it's not just that. I often use them just for saving little things. I have folders with CSS code that I use often enough. Instead of having to type it up every time, I'll just include it in Evernote. PHP code that I use on certain websites. There's one website that I have to keep replacing this PHP code on it for some reason. I'm not going to get into details, but I just save that PHP code to Evernote, and whenever I need it, I can go copy it from there. So there are so many uses for this program. Now, there is a free version they can use, and I don't even remember how much you get with that. I've been a premium paid member for years. And as I said, it's one of the programs I use on almost a daily basis. I will open it up, add stuff to it, look through it, and I have it available on my phone, on all my computers. Actually, I don't know. I just got an Apple Watch, and I don't know if it's available for the Apple Watch. I'll have to check on that. But it is so powerful that I highly encourage you to look into it. Now, I do have an affiliate with Evernote, so if you are interested and you want to sign up, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Evernote and give it a try. So that's this week's Resource of the Week. And now, 5 quick tips to help grow your design business. Now, this is going to be a little bit of rapid fire, not much of an introduction. I'm just going to go in and share 5 tips with you. So tip number 1, how do you get people to pay attention to you? And this could be either at a networking event, maybe when you're giving a presentation, possibly in an email that you send, or maybe even on your landing page or any sort of marketing material that you have. If you want people to pay attention, you have to start by identifying a problem you solve. You've heard me and you hear so many other designers say over and over and over again that as designers, we are problem solvers. Well, nobody cares about a solution if the problem hasn't been identified. Our brains as human beings are wired to go from problem to solution, from problem to solution, from problem to solution. And so many people get this wrong. If you only offer a solution, nobody's going to care what you have to say. For example, If you're at a networking event and someone asks, well, what do you do for a living? Don't just say, well, I design websites for startup companies. If you try to say something like that, you just look and see how fast their eyes glaze over. It's because they don't care. Instead, start with a problem. Maybe something like this. What do you do for a living? Well, let me tell you. Do you know how hard it is for a new startup company to compete online these days? With people's patience and their attention spans getting shorter and shorter, it can seem like an impossible task for them to get notice. Well, what I do is I create great looking and high converting websites that help new startups gain traction, catch up to, and eventually surpass their competition. You see, I showed a problem followed by a solution. Now you have their attention, especially if they're a small business, a startup, or if they know somebody. Designing websites is the solution. You have to let them know the problem before they will accept the solution you offer. So that was tip number 1. Tip number 2, be confident in your calls to action. Every good website, including your own as a designer, needs a call to action. Without one, what's the point of the site? Sure, you want people to know more about you. Sure, you want people to know about the services you offer. Sure, you want people to see your work portfolio. But ultimately, what you want is for people to hire you. Well, the best way to do that is with an assertive call to action. Passive calls to action, things like learn more or get started, just don't cut it. What they actually do is they instill doubt in the person looking at the page. It's as if you're not sure about your business and you're afraid to ask the client to commit. So instead of asking them to hire you, you're asking them to learn more about me. Like maybe you're not sure yet. Maybe I'm not sure yet. Learn a little bit more about me before you go on. It's like you're trying to convince them that they should hire you. Or saying something like, let's get started. It's as if you're saying, well, we'll get started, but if you don't like what you see, then we can stop at any time. No. You don't want to have a passive call to action. What you want is to be bold and show confidence that you can actually help this client, and you need to show it in your call to action. Be direct and use CTAs like hire me, schedule a call, or order now. The more direct you are and the more assertive your call to action is, the better chance that someone will follow through. Tip number 3, get paid faster by sharing the value you provide on the actual invoice. Wouldn't it be nice if clients paid your invoices as soon as they receive them? That you wouldn't have to sit there and wait wondering when or even if the money will ever come in? What if you can make one small change that would actually encourage your clients and make them want to pay the invoice faster? Well, you can, simply by sharing the value you provided directly on the invoice. So instead of doing an invoice that's just itemized, designed website for X amount of dollars, designed logo for X amount of dollars, designed brochure for X amount of dollars, here's the total of the entire order, if that's all you're doing, you're really missing out. What you need to do is start using a sort of maybe a description field for each itemized item, or maybe add something to a footnote on the invoice. And the idea is to remind your clients of the value of their purchase. Not the cost. I'm talking about the value. And if you remember or listen to last week's episode where I shared a little story about a watch, you'll understand what I mean when I talk about value as opposed to cost. So instead of just saying on the invoice, designed website, write designed website with a clear, concise message which will produce a good conversion rate, which will translate into increased sales. Wow. Now that's more impressive. And the client's going to look at that and go, yeah, they didn't just design a website. They designed a website that's actually going to increase our sales. Or designed a logo that shows quality and longevity of the brand and that stands out amongst the competition. Yeah, that's true. You designed a logo for us that not just looks good, but wow, it looks so much better than our competition. Or design a brochure to showcase the premium services you offer and instill an air of confidence in the people hiring you. That is so true. It's so much more than just a brochure. So if you can show your client that you provided more than just, say, a website, a logo, and a brochure, and that you actually provided something that will help their business grow and their business succeed, When they are reminded of that value that you've given them, they will be much more willing to pay your invoice quicker. Tip number 4, go from being a good salesperson to a great salesperson. I know we don't want to think about it, but a major part of running a design business is being a salesperson. If we weren't, we would never get new clients. Now, how good of a salesperson you are does affect the number of clients who hire you. But this is something you can learn. And if you want to go from being a good salesperson to being a great salesperson, you need to remember 2 things: empathy and authority. Empathy is showing that you understand the problem that the client is coming to you with. Let them know. All you have to do is tell them, I understand how you feel, or I get where you're coming from, or I know exactly what you're talking about. Let them know. Connect with them. Show some empathy. When a client feels that you have an empathetic connection with them, they're much more likely to hire you. And then show authority. You need to show the client that you're not only confident you can help them, but you have the experience to back up that confidence. Let them know, well, I've helped other clients with similar problems, or that's actually a common issue, and I know we can solve that. Or here's what we can do to solve your problem. Showing authority will help ease the client's mind in hiring you. Now think about the power when you combine both the empathy and the authority together. I understand how you feel, but rest assured, I've helped other clients with similar problems before. Or, I get where you're coming from, but that's actually a common issue, and I know we can solve it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Here's what we can do to solve your issue. If you can master the art of using empathy and authority when you're trying to close a sale, you will go from being a good salesperson to a great salesperson. And tip number 5, avoid being cute or trying to be too clever in your marketing. When done right, cute and clever can be a huge success. Unfortunately, the majority of the times, cute and clever are not done right. And the thing is, there's no way for the person who's actually developing the campaign or designing the stuff to know if it's actually done right or not because they're too close to it. The problem with trying to be cute or clever is that a lot of people just won't get it. They're not in your head. They're not part of the discussion that comes up with the campaign ideas. They might not have your experience, your background, your history, and therefore, they won't understand the message. The idea that you think is so cute or so clever may be completely lost to them. And if a potential client feels confused about your message, then you've already lost them as a client. So for any marketing campaign to be successful, the message needs to be clear. Clear what the message is and clear as what you want the client to do. Do you need a professional graphic designer to develop your company's new brand? Book a call to discuss your meeting. Concise and clear will win out over cute and clever every single time. So those are my 5 tips or quick tips to help grow your graphic design business. Hopefully you gained something here of use. If not, well, I'm sorry I wasted your time, but thanks for sticking around anyway. I would love to know what you thought of these tips. Leave me a comment for this episode by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 241. Now, before I go, I want to remind you of the resource of the week, which is Evernote. As I said, I've been using it for, I don't even remember when. I started using it way back when it actually wasn't that great at the beginning, but it's grown so much. And now I use it on a daily basis to organize my life. I have so many different notebooks to organize different things, and I just love it. And I'm sure you would too. If you want to sign up and give it a try, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Evernote. I'm sure you won't regret it. And as the year is coming to an end and January will soon be upon us, the Resourceful Designer community will be opening up again to new members. And the first ones that I will let in will be those who signed up for the waiting list at resourcefuldesigner.com/community. They'll get first dibs to be let in. So if you are interested in joining a great group of dedicated designers who just want to grow their business and want to communicate and connect with like-minded people, then why don't you give the community a try? We'd love to have you. So thank you very much. I always appreciate you tuning in and listening to the podcast. It means so much to me. And if you do enjoy the podcast, please share it with a friend. Let a fellow designer know about it. They can sign up, well, just about anywhere that you can find podcasts. And they could even download the app for both Android and iOS and never miss an episode. So don't be selfish and spread the word. So that's it for me. I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic or web design business. And as I do every episode, I want to remind you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.